Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. The 10th anniversary celebrations begin with a Patreon viewer's choice of a goofy tie-in book to a terrible cartoon, James Bond Jr. I reviewed the third issue of this series back in the tail end of 2009, before Secret Origins month, before I devoted the entire month of December to Christmas comics, or adaptations of works, or visual novels that people pay me to review containing pedophilic dogs. My show is kind of weird. Anywho, at the time, I wasn't really a big fan of James Bond, and I still am not, but at least since then, I've watched a lot more James Bond movies and can acknowledge how much fun they can be, from the interesting spy thrillers and emotional connections from the good ones like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, to the laughably awful yet still entertaining ones like Moonraker or Die Another Day. Yeah, sure, movie. Gene therapy that turns a Korean into a white guy. Let's roll with that. Anyway, the James Bond Jr. cartoon from 1991 to 1992. A cartoon made for syndication to trade in on name value of the property, even though said property was not intended for children. In 2009, I pointed out how bizarre it was that these kind of shows came about at all. And I'm still puzzling over it. And yet, we don't see it as often anymore. Admittedly, I might be mistaken, but most of the time, newer cartoons tend to either be original properties or new shows for long-running franchises. If you get a movie tie-in, it's usually because of those franchises, like a new Avengers series to tie into the Marvel movies, or something along those lines. You don't see as much Men in Black the series, or Beetlejuice or the like. Come on, where's the Fast and the Furious cartoon where Dom and the crew battle aliens and souped-up high-tech hot rods? Where's the Insidious cartoon where a wisecracking Elise Rayner and her grandkids battle new demons each week? And of course, the greatest idea for a kids show ever, John Wick Jr.! And that, of course, brings us back around to this cartoon and its Marvel tie-in book. If you're unfamiliar with the show or my previous review, the premise of the series is already off to a rocky start, as the junior suffix usually refers to, say, a person's son, but in this case is James Bond's nephew. Well, I mean, James Bond is known as such a chaste character. You could never believe that he ever sired any offspring. Inexplicable as that is, the nephew goes to a boarding school where he hangs out with relatives to other mainstays of the franchise, like IQ, the grandson of Q. More irritatingly, he also ends up taking on the various popular villains of the series, like Goldfinger or Dr. No, because nothing helps the menace of your villains quite like making them be trounced by some teenager in prep school. The first 5 issues of the comic were adapted from the TV series, with the rest being original tales. So we have a comic series adapted from a TV series based on a movie series made from a novel series. There was an NES and Super NES game for this cartoon too. But of course, when I looked at the third issue, it was only because that was the only comic I had of it at the time. But now it's time to return to this long-forgotten bit of my show's history. So let's dig into James Bond Jr. #1 and see if it's just as bad as it was back in 2009, and probably as bad as it was back in the 90s.
Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a birdie hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazon and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Bond. James Bond Jr. No one can stop him, but scum always tries.
The cover is boring and lame, featuring our titular James Bond Jr. himself just standing there, apparently hitchhiking based on his hand, and there's a lazy collage of things surrounding him, including a flying car, a guy with a robotic set of jaws. I wonder what James Bond character that is. Oh, right, Octopussy. Then there's Bond with a girl hang gliding, and finally, Captain Shadowy Von Mysterious. Oh, and bright pink and dark blue swirls. I'll give it credit that that's more interesting to look at than a gradient or a solid color, but this is seriously one of those covers where they clearly did not give a crap what they were presenting. We open in rural England, where the calm of a fine summer morning is about to be rudely interrupted.
What? Well, blame these road signs. They don't have any vowels.
Springing from hidden compartments, laser cannons sear the air. You know, when you look at the size of those things, you've got to imagine they actually screwed over the car by shoving that into a hidden compartment. I mean, did they just push the engine off to the side? Does this thing even have a windshield wiper fluid reservoir? Anyway, yeah, one car is chasing after another, with the one being chased having armor plating to deal with the laser cannon, which probably affects the gas mileage, come to think of it. And the car is soon sent over a cliff, until the guy in it hits a button for flight conversion, which causes the car to sprout wings and a propeller up front. James Bond Jr., where we're going, we don't need roads. And we are gonna see some serious crap. The guy who was chasing the flying car gets out of the passenger side back seat, and there's a dog there with him, too. Blast it! Damn it, Scruffy! This is why I don't trust your driving anymore! We cut to the southeast coast of England and the Warfield Academy, where a bunch of students are being greeted by the headmaster, Mr. Milbanks. However, he quickly realizes that there's someone missing from the orientation. Somebody is missing, Mr. Mitchell. I won't tolerate lateness. And as the gym teacher, I obviously needed you here to complain about it. Like, seriously, look at the shots. None of the other teachers showed up for this bullcrap. Unless these two are the only ones who work here, which, given the environment created by Snooty Von Tardy Pants, maybe no one wants to work here. Everyone ducks down as the flying car suddenly arrives, and I just realized, screw the hidden laser guns in the front, where the hell do the wings for this thing sprout from? Upon landing, the car drifts into an open parking space, creating a dust cloud for the driver to emerge from, all dramatic-like. A flying Aston Martin? Who on earth is responsible for this outrage? Flying cars? That's just not done! Wow, I really was not underselling how much of a snooty dickhead this guy is. It's a flying car! Be impressed, damn it! And thus our title character is revealed. My name's Bond. James Bond. Jr. It really is amazing how one word just completely ruins any power or mystique that name could bring with it. Like, if someone announced themselves as, I'm Captain James T. Kirk's cousin. We cut to a short time later in the headmaster's office, where Bond is getting chewed out by Snoots Magoots. And what's more, I will not tolerate such behavior. I think that mustache is cutting off circulation to your brain, dude. Flying car! The kid is to be grounded for 1 week, and yet again the PE teacher is hanging out here for some reason. Oh, it's to show the junior Mr. Bond to his room. I guess I deserve that. Milbanks can be strict, but if you're anything like your uncle, 007, yes, you probably did. Da-da-da-da! You know my uncle, Mr. Mitchell? Since my FBI days, James. Ever since the Sheriff Pepper incidents. That file is as tall as the school. Gotta love how this dude went through all the work for both his teaching career and being an operative of the FBI, and yet he gets to play a glorified tour guide for Bond here. Anyway, he tells James to stay out of trouble, and the kid proceeds to his dorm room, which is currently in disarray because of his roommate performing science experiments in it. I thought this was the dorm, not the science lab. Dr. Jekyll, I presume. Eh? Oh, Horace Boothroyd, actually. My friends call me IQ. And by friends, I mean Mr. Hyde. James introduces himself. You must be the grandson of Q. My uncle's always talking about him. That's right, James. Every person here is a family member of some relation to your uncle. The Spanish teacher is Scaramanga's brother. Just how big a coincidence is that? Not only that so many people who know Bond or are relatives of people associated with him all share the same school, and Q's grandson even gets to be his roommate. Bond, finding an odd-looking watch, picks it up right before IQ tells him not to fiddle with it. And he accidentally shoots off a dart right into IQ's experiment, which makes it explode.
Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
Surprisingly, IQ takes it in stride that his experiment with superconductive liquid is ruined and, well, all his stuff is broken by the clumsy idiot who just came in and offers to introduce him to some of the other students. In hindsight, it's probably just to get rid of him for a while. And of course, first up is another Bond relative, Gordo Later, son of Felix Later, CIA agent and friend of Bond, who I honestly never remember in any of the movies, so if I'm mispronouncing his name, oh well. The guy is holding a dining room tray, which he decides to surf down the stairs on. I feel a tubular wave coming on. Hang 10! That poor kid was sent here instead of to the hospital to deal with his surfing delusions. He runs down another student as he surfs, Tracy Milbanks, daughter of the headmaster. James pulls a Peter Parker from the first Spider-Man movie and saves her food from spilling everywhere, but she has no reaction to that. What does it take to make these people the slightest bit mystified or in awe? I mean, I know school can be a soul-crushing experience, but how bad is this place? I've heard about you, James Bond, and don't think for a minute that getting friendly with me will help you with him. What, does the kid have a reputation for sleeping with the daughters of principals to get on their good sides? He didn't even know who the hell you were until now. Getting friendly with you would be a pleasure no matter who your father was. Want to get kicked in the double O's in 7? A more nerdy-looking girl named Phoebe Farragut arrives, clearly smitten with James. Brother, what a line and what a hunk. Delighted, Phoebe. I certainly am. I'd love to hold your thunderballs. One more person enters the fray, mostly to walk through it. Out of the way! The hallways are no place for fraternization. Who's that? That's Trevor Noseworthy III, a real twit. And a total dweeb. I've got a feeling he and I aren't going to get on that well. Knowing this school, he's probably Blofeld's kid. Outside the school, we rejoin the villain who had earlier chased him, identified now as Scumlord. Please, Scumlord was my father's name. Call me Mildew Baron. With him is Jaws, the classic Bond villain played by Richard Kiel, though here he's a bit more bulky and a lot more talky. They work for the organization known as Scum, saboteurs and criminals united in mayhem, back in the days when terrorists didn't really hold any pretense. Scumlord says that what they're after is the car. It contains a top-secret electromagnetic pulse generator. With it, Scum could control every computer system in England by frying them! Wait. Seriously? Not even he's interested in the flying car? Just a friggin' EMP? Man, people were jaded in 1992. What's more, why the hell does some teenager have a car with something that dangerous and important in it? In fact, why the hell does his car fly? Who gave that to him instead of just some normal-ass sports car? Jaws says that he'll steal the car that night, but apparently Scumlord has already made arrangements for the car to come to them. And indeed, we soon see Tracy running up to James to let him know that the post office called and there's a package there waiting for him. James wants to go pick it up, but IQ reminds him that he's supposed to be confined to the school for the week. Oh yeah, I wonder if the headmaster's daughter might know how to slip out of Warfield undetected. Well, she might, but I don't know if you'll fit into any of my dresses. Nah, she's happy to help him if she can get a ride in the Aston Martin. There's a secret passage out of the academy that nobody knows about, allowing the two to slip out the side of a canyon wall while IQ brings the car to them. Thanks for delivering the Aston Martin, IQ. My pleasure, James, even though I've never driven a car before. By the way, you might want to bring it in for a car wash. There might be a few, pedestrians in the wheel well. In town, James and IQ go into the post office while Tracy remains in the car. When she spots Jaws approaching, she hides in the back seat, and Jaws somehow manages to get inside, driving away with it, and of course it kind of looks like a clown car now because of how huge and bulky he is. Admittedly, I'm sure this must be an actual recurring problem for really tall people, but it's just confounded in this since I'm sure in this comic he's really scrunched up in there. Anyway, James and IQ spot the car taking off. I don't believe it! Someone has stolen the Aston Martin! And Tracy with it! Either that, or Tracy's been taking my hide formula. IQ has a solution, though. Quick, we can get Gordo to bring the Warfield van! And indeed, the Warfield van comes by to pick them up. Naturally, some old junker van is able to catch up to the car, and apparently it didn't require much cajoling to get Gordo to take the school van. IQ explains that every MI6 car emits a homing beacon that he can track, which, okay, that means that James presumably gave his nephew government property for no good reason. Second, why would Q instruct his grandson on how to track an MI6 car? Is this part of some escape plan he has in case he ever needs to defect? Third, why is Phoebe with them? Yeah, she's Tracy's best friend, but why did Gordo bring her along on this trip if she has nothing to really contribute beyond moral support? Anyway, they arrive at an old airstrip and IQ gives him the special watch. Your gadget watch, IQ. Thank you. Hey, what's this do? A plane starts landing. Uh-oh, a scum cargo jet. Damn them and their effective marketing initiatives. Jaws yells up to Scumlord that he has the car and is ordered to bring it aboard. Woof! Bark! Growl!
That was a great scene.
The car is inside of a truck, so IQ goes into its engine and drops in some of the conductive liquid. As such, when Jaws starts the truck up, its engine explodes. Man, it's gonna be really depressing when it turns out that was Optimus Prime. James sneaks into the cargo section and finds Tracy in the car, but apparently Jaws overheard them and immediately snatched the two up. He stuffs the two into the trunk of the car and drives it over to the airplane. Back in the van, the others are distraught and confused, although not about the same things. Gordo and Phoebe are wondering where James and Tracy are, respectively. IQ, though, I hope he looks after my watch. Glad to see you've got your priorities straight, man. The plane takes off, but James is able to use a laser on the watch to bust out of the trunk. Now then, we can get out of here. But we're thousands of feet in the air. But this car can fly, remember? Oh yeah, I guess it wasn't that memorable a feature. Unfortunately, it seems that his last flight burnt out the circuitry necessary to make it fly, and Jaws overhears them again and comes in. Frankly, I don't find the stewardess very attractive. You're just pissed that they're skipping the beverage service since it's a short flight. In a surprising display of competence, James drives into Jaws and sends him flying back into the cockpit. Okay, now he just needs to get out of the car and follow in the footsteps of other great secret agents.
I want to fly the plane!
Jaws gets knocked into Scumlord, who's the actual pilot. Man, there must have been budget cuts at Scum if they can't afford someone else to fly the thing. Our heroes get out of the car and, for some reason, Jaws decides to start eating the car. Look, Jaws, if you're that hungry, you should have grabbed something from the duty-free shop at the airport. Like, if he's trying to get to the two, just climb over it. Or hell, he easily survived a car ramming into him and through a door. He could probably just push it out of the way. James grabs a nearby parachute and leaps out. May I suggest we catch a later flight? Like this one. Well, yeah, but I don't think you're gonna make your connection, dude. Apparently, Scumlord is so bad a pilot that he can't regain control of the plane after the minor jostling from Jaws, so the thing goes careening down and crashes in a huge fiery explosion. Still a better airline than United. Bye-bye, Scumlord. Scumlord and his dog manage to survive via parachute, though Jaws ends up falling and landing in a barn where a chicken rests on his head. Geez, no wonder he ended up working for Hugo Drax. At least in Moonraker, when he fell out of a plane, he landed in a circus. Back at the school, Trevor Noseworthy is leading Milbanks to Bond's room, claiming he hasn't seen him in hours. Although, why should he care? Maybe he's hanging out in some other guy's room away from you. In any event, when they reach the room, James is back in it. Mr. Milbanks, I really have appreciated being confined to the academy. I've managed to catch up on all of my studies. I mean, have you seen how messed up some of these Ian Fleming novels are? In Goldfinger, apparently lesbians only exist because women have the right to vote. And indeed, Noseworthy gets punished for this little interruption because they're both jackasses. They just have different ways of expressing it. Turns out IQ snuck him into the room on this ladder that is falling down with him still on it. Later, Mr. Mitchell says that Tracy told him what happened, and he's confirmed with 007 himself that the pulse generator was never in the car, that Scum was misinformed. Oh good, instead of actually giving him the important piece of equipment, you just let murderous thieves think it was there so your nephew could be in danger. That's so much better, 00 Dickweed. However, as recompense for this, the pieces of the Aston Martin that were recovered were reconfigured into a new convertible for James, which he happily takes out for a test drive with everybody. And so our comic ends with IQ thinking about all the gadgets he can play with in this car. Can't wait to see how this one can go into space! And everybody still just rolls their eyes at it. This comic sucks, but it's certainly not the worst thing I've covered. It's a story for kids, certainly, so I can cut it a little bit of slack, but man oh man, it's incredible how the fantastic is treated with a shrug in this thing. It's not helped by the fact that the events of the story only happen because the villains are morons who assume that some teenager has access to dangerous advanced equipment. The introductions to the characters are really just shallow without anything going for them to indicate that there's anything beyond the basics we see here. It's not so dreadful that it's painful, but it is dumb and pointless. Next time, another Patreon-sponsored review. And it's another long one, too. We've seen the first crossover between Marvel and DC superheroes, so now let's look at the last one they did, with JLA/Avengers.
Sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst books that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for kids, but they're not. They're for everybody. Linkara. If you doubt that I am a man, I am a man.
Well, here's to us.